Okay,
Hi, I
there.
can hear
Gail,
you.
how are we doing, Gail?
I'm
And
well. How are you?
good, thank you. And Leela and Robin are still muted. So why don't we, there's only at this point, only five of us. So let's all unmute before we can have a conversation. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Leela, if you want to unmute, and Robin, if you want to unmute. Okay. So Gail, while they're figuring out how to unmute, how was our week in concern in areas of Facebook?
Well, really, all I did was contemplate. You said last week, so I just contemplated all the things you said and that you've taught us. And you said if there's think of any questions you'd want, you know, us to talk about. So that's kind of what I did.
Perfect. And did you come up with a list?
Really, just one main
Okay,
one.
go for it. What's your
Okay.
one main thing?
So we've learned all this good stuff, and it would be great if a final piece could be you kind of like just walking through of how you would actually post it or boost it, because we're all, at least I think lots of us are kind of inexperienced in that area as well.
Sure.
Or to Facebook. So
okay, so showing. Okay, that's great. Okay, Alex, I see you're unmuted. Did you decide what you'd like to go over today?
Give me 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay. Robin, do you know what you want to take away from today? Okay. Robin, do you see how to unmute? It's down in your lower left, I believe. Isn't it, Grayson? Isn't it the lower left to unmute? All right. Portia, did you think about what's the thing you'd like to leave today knowing?
I think the biggest hurdle I have right now is I need to train other people to do these videos. So
Okay, tell me what you mean. What's your role? Who do you need to train?
I need to train the owners. I think they're the ones who need to really do the video or the videos. So they're busy, of course, but I think they're like me. You know, I think it's shy. Everybody's a little shy about getting in front of the camera.
Okay.
Of course, they're behind on the marketing because, you know, I'm attending and they're not. Although I send them, which has been great, your recordings. So
right. Okay.
That's the biggest hurdle, because I think you've done a great job. So I just need to get my team going.
Well, I appreciate that.
Okay.
That you think you did a great job, but I'm not sure.
30
And
seconds
we'll
are up,
discuss it.
Alex.
I put this down, training other people. I'm not sure you need to have the other people doing it, but when we get to that question, we'll discuss that. Fair enough?
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Okay. Alex, were you ready? It sounded
Yes.
like you might have been ready. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. Overview guidance on how to present the refining qualifications that subtly the Facebook ad program is trying to deploy, i.e., why we do what we do. Okay, that's sharing our passion, right? Now, and then if they're interested in that, they go to what we do in terms of helping people in life.
Right.
And then finally, the how is our unique way of providing that.
Okay.
And my sense is that the whole idea is that this Facebook ad campaign technique, which is just one technique in the big picture of marketing strategies that one can deploy depending on the concepts that you're pursuing.
Right.
Is we're all trying to find qualified prospects that we can engage in conversation with to see if we're a good fit to help them. And
Yep.
to some degree, the Facebook funnel is allowing the visitors to determine if they like our companies and our persona through these why, what, how
Right.
infomercials, if you will.
Yeah, it's
How
doing it
much-
self-selection.
So with that as the theme that I'd like you to receive this question in, how much of our own filtering process that we all have for who we feel is our best customer or our best client, knowing that none of us can be all things to all people, and we're trying to be the best thing in our space for some people, but how much filtering information should we deploy in these Facebook focused ads, some of which maybe can be used on YouTube, but I know that's a little bit of a different focus. So that sort of guidance, I think, would be really helpful for everybody in their own industry or profession, so
Okay.
that we're specific enough that we're acting as a pretty good filter for the people that will be going through that funnel process, but not too specific that we're blowing the people who might be the fence sitters that might become a client and might not.
Right. Okay. We can take a stab at that. That's going to be a hard one to define to a point where we're all satisfied. I'll be honest, but we can take a stab at it. We can move towards that direction.
Yeah,
All right.
great, thanks.
Okay, super. Let's see. We're missing Robin. You can unmute yourself. That would be wonderful. I don't know if you can figure out how to do that or not. No. And when I say you can unmute yourself, I know some of these people may have started up the meeting and then gone and gotten a cup of coffee, so they may not even be there.
Robin says she has no microphone on her computer.
Oh, if she can type in, then if she has a question, type in the question and Grayson will give it to me.
Yeah, and Robin, actually type it in the chat, please, and not the Q&A, if you don't mind.
Yep, in the chat. Okay, so, and then Leela, do you have a microphone? If you don't have a microphone, Leela, then also put your question into the chat. All right, and that leaves Rob Medley. I know, Rob, you're very shy, but if you could share your thoughts, what question are you looking for?
I'm not really looking for a question at this time. I appreciate it, Art.
Okay. Your question is, how do we get back out on the golf course, right?
You know that's right.
On my way.
Didn't you
On my
and
way.
Grayson have a golf game scheduled?
We did.
Good.
We were supposed to play with you in Tampa.
That's right. Yeah, well, I'll take on the old cry of the Chicago Cubs. Wait till next year, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll get to it sooner or later.
That's right.
Maybe October.
Maybe. All right. Is there anyone that I missed? I think that's everybody. All right. So I'm going to start off. We'll get to all these questions, but I'm going to start off with a philosophical discussion first, okay? Because I find that a lot of people don't have structure on how to figure out their marketing. So I'm going to give you a concept that you could use. It's just one of many. A lot of different people have ways of doing this, but I'll just give you one possible way. Lee,
Art, I think Lee is trying to say something.
yeah, Lee, please. I'm sorry. I just saw that you got your microphone working. Did you have a question you wanted answered this week? Lee? Huh. Okay, I thought I heard you for a second, Lee. I apologize, but evidently not. All right. So how does someone get enough leads, period? Forgetting Facebook, forgetting everything for a moment. How does someone get enough leads? There's a couple of things we need to know in order to answer that question. Number one, we have to know what enough leads are. All right. So how do you discover what enough leads are? There's basically two things that go into what's enough leads. One is how many leads can you actually handle? So let's just say you're working by yourself. So there's only one person who can handle the leads. Let's just say you can do 20 appointments a week. So the most number of leads you could work with in any given week is 20, as long as you had no one to follow up with from the previous week. Okay? So let's say that's not realistic. So let's say the most you could work with is 10. Another way to figure out how many leads you need is figure out what your closing percentage is and figure out how many sales you have to make in a given week. Let's just say you close 1 out of 3 people you meet with and you need to make 5 sales. That means you need 15 opportunities each week. Okay? So whichever way you decide to do it, you have to end up with a number of how many leads you need. Most people do not know what that number is. But that knowing what that number is critical. So I'm going to encourage you to figure that out. The second number is just as critical, and rarely does anyone know this number. And that is, how much can you pay for a lead? Does anyone on this call know how much they can pay for a lead? I'm going to guess no, but I'd love it if someone proved me wrong. Okay, so
As much as until you, as long as you can make money still, then I guess you could pay, you know, that's the number.
yeah, that's the number, but almost nobody actually knows what that number is. So I'll just give you an example. We work with a roofing company. I don't know, Rob, if you've met them. Simplify, they're a member of NARI, but a new member. And their average deal is about $14,000. Okay. When you subtract out the cost of labor, when you subtract out the cost of supplies, when you subtract out the cost of insurance and trucks and all of that, and then you take what percentage profit you want to make. Let's just say at the end of everything, you want 10% profit. Subtract that out, a number is left, okay? Whatever that number is, that is the maximum you can spend for a lead. Oh no, and you have to figure out your closing ratio. Let's just say your closing ratio is 1 out of 3. So you have to take that number and divide it by 3. Okay, let's say $100 is left, just to keep the math good, and you close 1 out of 3. That means you can spend $33 for a lead. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that doesn't mean you want to spend $33 a lead because you want to increase your profit. But it means you can spend $33 for a lead. And in the roofing company's case, when we did that math, they came up with $217 is what they could pay per lead. All right? Because they closed about 1 out of 3, that meant that they could close, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's like $640 they could spend per sale, but it takes them 3 appointments to end up with 1 sale. So you take that number and divide by 3. So now let's just say I'm right without looking it up. So let's say it's $217 per appointment that they can spend. All right. And let's just say they have to get 2 leads to get 1 appointment. So now that 217, they now can spend $113 per lead. And let's just say they need 15 leads. So here's what they should do. And I'm going to suggest everyone should do this. You should fill up as many of your appointments with the lowest cost leads you can. but keep going down until you fill the 15. So in other words, first thing would be by referrals. Referrals are the best, best prospects you can have. They already have a reason to trust you. They already have some idea of who you are. And so let's just, for the fun of it, say of the 15, he can fill 5 of them with referrals. And then maybe the next group is the next cheapest group of leads that he gets from his website. Say he can get 3 a week from those. So now we've filled up 8 of the 15. And then let's say he's a roofer, so they do some door knocking. So let's say that's a pretty cheap lead. So we can go and knock on doors. Say he can get another 3 there. So now he's got 8. So that means 11 of the 15 leads are coming from all those other areas. But the last 4 leads, the only place he can get them is from Home Advisor, which are the leads he hates the most. Gets them from Home Advisor, and they're costing $217 per lead, okay? Or $113 per lead. You get $217 per appointment. He should spend it, because the most expensive thing for him is to have an unfilled appointment slot, as long as that appointment is under the number that he can afford to pay, at or under. And I think that's a mistake that people make. This is kind of like the question of what's the most expensive thing in a restaurant. And I had a guy who owned 37 restaurants absolutely guarantee me the most expensive thing in the restaurant is an empty seat, because he had already paid the rent, he had already paid the insurance, he already paid the heating, he already paid the labor. So that empty seat was the most expensive thing. Well, I'm going to suggest the same thing with your prospects, that as long as you can afford it, it is better to fill it, even if it's with a very expensive lead, as long as you can possibly afford it. Now, once he fills up those 15 seats, once he's filled them, then he starts trying to fill them less expensively. So he wants to take those 4 Home Advisor leads and find another way that costs less than $217 per appointment to fill each one of those slots. Rob, what do you think? Does that make sense?
It does. It's given me a little perspective on you and I both have had this conversation where I'm against paying for leads, but
Absolutely.
I do see where filling that appointment will definitely, it's definitely valid to fill the it takes care of overhead if you've got a full plate.
That's right. And I'm all for lowering the cost per lead down to nothing if possible. But I don't think that's a good enough reason not to have the appointments.
So Art, can I comment?
Please,
Okay, I personally respectfully disagree.
please, go ahead.
Okay. Well, there's a nuance that you didn't mention, which
Okay.
there's a big difference between a raw lead and a qualified lead. So that's a big piece of this. And for example, the roofing example you gave, he already just determined that his poorest lead, as in worst conversion, that's what I am assuming based on what you said,
Well, and
is
most
Home
expensive.
Advisor. Is Home Advisor, and I personally agree. I tried that years ago. That's it's not a good quality lead. So therefore, you can have hundreds of leads from a source that is not going to convert to a qualified lead. So it's a waste of the owner's time, the marketing person's time, the salesperson's time to be chasing after unqualified leads. So it's better for them to maybe take a self-help improvement course or something else with their time if they actually don't have a lead versus going to leads that are poor quality leads.
Okay. By the way, Gail, let's start off with an agreement that we don't have to agree about this, okay?
Okay.
But I am going to offer a counter view, okay? And again, not that you have to agree with me. Don't misunderstand this. But I'm going to suggest that all leads could be better qualified. That we're talking degrees here, okay? What percentage of qualify it is, okay? And in this case, Nick, who's the owner of Semper Fi, he has come to the conclusion that a home advisor lead is better qualified than no lead. Okay? He would not disagree in concept with what you said, but he would disagree with the nuance that you had, meaning that if someone actually filled out a form and scheduled an appointment to talk about that subject, they're better qualified than nobody to talk to.
Sure.
Okay? They may not be as well qualified as other ones, but they're qualified enough to be worth the time. He'll also maintain that having a truck sitting in front of someone's house in a community with his name on it, with his phone number and stuff, talking to somebody can generate other opportunities. So I agree with you that it has to be qualified, okay, but I'm putting qualified in quotations. But he would argue that the level of qualification to fill the last slot with is very low because it's better filled than not filled unless the person is guaranteed they're not going to buy, they're not qualified, they don't own the house, they don't, yes, but he's assuming that home advisor lead, or at least he has found that home advisor lead normally is the homeowner, normally does have a roof, and thus is better qualified than none. Is not as qualified as what he'd like, but then he's going to do the same thing as he does with the pricing. He's going to figure out how to be in front of more qualified leads at a better price. Does that make sense at all?
Yes.
Well, so let me jump in on this, Art.
Please.
With Gail, from her perspective, I understand because I don't feel that I'm going to get leads through social media for my high-end residential remodels that I do that are through contractors and architects where, I'm doing really, that's not a kind of lead I could look for through social media. I don't believe. I think the lead I can get through this is go hang a ceiling fan for somebody down the street. So, as far as, is Gail going to get a kitchen out of this, through Home Advisor or Yelp or something like that? You obviously want to have a good record with these people, but I don't know that, the average person that is looking for a kitchen is going to be surfing the internet and just finding people. Now, I think it could help through the YouTube process, through the Facebook process that we're going through, and it helps us qualify. But I can't see, I'm not going to get Home Advisors not going to send me to go do, a $150,000 electrical renovation on a home. Does that make sense?
It
Well,
makes,
just to
go ahead, Gail.
add
Go ahead.
on. Okay, so
Yeah.
what you said makes sense, Rob, but then I would recommend to the roofing guy that he needs to find an alternate source other than Home Advisor that it provides better quality leads at a lower cost and quit wasting his time on Home Advisor. For example, Home Advisor, I can tell you for a quality remodeling company is not the place to go for leads. That's based on personal experience from years ago. And, it's also a waste of someone's time if you have to go through 1,000 leads to get to one that is qualified. It's a waste of your salesperson's time to do that. So I do think you can find, home remodeling clients online, but I'm not suggesting that Home Advisor is the place, and just you use that as an example, but it doesn't matter whether it's Home Advisor or some other company. If you determine that it takes way too much of your time to comb through all the leads to find the gem, then that's not the place for you to put your money in and your time in to go get that lead.
Gail, you're making a couple of assumptions that go directly against the example I gave. Okay? You're assuming it's not worth it, and yet in my description, I actually gave the math of what decides if it's worth it or not, and it passed the math. So in this case, we know as a fact that he's making money on the Home Advisor leads. We know that as a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not a thought. It is a fact. And that's why we did the math, okay? Now, it's at the lowest level of profit of the list, which is why it's the final four, and which is why I said immediately, once we fill it, then we try to figure out how to fill those last four slots with something else. So we're closer in agreement on this than it first sounds, because you said he ought to figure out how to replace him, but I said he ought to figure out how to replace them also.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're
okay.
both agreeing he should figure out how to replace them, but we did the math. That was the beginning part of this whole description, was doing the math of what was the limits of being worth it, and it passed the math test. He is making money on those clients. So why should he get rid of something that he's making money on when he doesn't have the thing to replace it with yet? I don't get the logic of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
All right. May I jump in?
please.
So at the very beginning, you talked about you're using the example of this roofing company that has a number of different salespeople.
Correct.
I maintain and have seen over the years that, well, and it's pretty obvious mathematically, that companies that do more projects that tend to be smaller volume projects need more leads.
Correct.
Close ratios 1 out of 5, and they they do 200 jobs a year. They need, what's that? 5 times 200 is 1,000 leads.
Correct.
And you can't do that. One person can't do that. Maybe they have 3, 4, 5 salespeople, whatever.
7 to be exact.
Full service design, build, custom remodelers like Ted, like Daniel's Remodeling and the Alexander Group and anyone else who might be in this group that works in that space, we all calculate out what's our average job size. Well, that varies depending on the health of the economy,
Right.
but it could be anywhere from, 50,000 to 100,000, or one year my average job size was 245,000.
Right.
But as an electrical contractor, average job size might be 12,500, 17,000, 22,000. I really don't know. The numbers would vary depending upon if you were geared more towards smaller service jobs with a higher profit margin per job, or more contract work for contractors and designers and architects or what have you. So when you move all that over to the marketing, on really good years, I remember I didn't count every inquiry that came in as a lead. An inquiry became a lead if it had at least a serious conversation that might happen between a sales rep and the homeowner.
Okay.
And at that point, we'd call it a lead.
Okay.
And track it from there. And then, we all need to figure out what's, leads, bids, sales. Out of
Right.
100 leads, you do 40 bids and you get 10 sales, and your average sale is 245. That's 2.45 million a year. And at the right profit margins, that's a pretty healthy year. How much?
Sure.
Then everybody talks about the percentages that they invest in marketing as a percentage of their overall company. And roofing and siding and window replacement companies usually spend between 7 to 12%, more your home improvement, smaller ticket items, and they need more jobs. They have to spend more on marketing because they have to keep that pipeline of projects, pumped. So some of them, spend up to 15%, I've heard.
So Alex, just so we don't drag this on too long, is your point that the math equation I laid out has different numbers in it for different companies? Because I'd agree with that 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the time value of the sales rep, Daniels and I, perhaps we don't have salespeople right now. So we'll spend an hour and a half on the phone with,
But how does that change the equation that I gave? I mean, it sounds like you're offering a different point of view, but I'm hearing the exact same point of view. So I'm confused.
I think the difference is that you need to, I guess, sort of put some boundaries on it in the sense of the scale of the example.
But I did put boundaries on it by describing the formula. So in other words, right, I mean, because in the formula, as an example, Alex, I'll just give you one example. In the formula was closing 1 out of 3. So if the leads were such that you weren't closing 1 out of 3, then it was not an acceptable lead by that formula.
Fair enough. Okay.
As in
Okay.
you're saying a lead source, right? So you're, for example, saying that already he knew in Home Advisor he was closing 1 out of 3, which is why even though it was poor lead or whatever, he still valued that as a lead because he still made some sort of profit, even if it was
Correct.
minor.
That's right. It fit the formula. If
Yeah.
it fell outside the formula, then he wouldn't do it because he only did it as long as he only filled those last seats as long as it still fit the math, as long as it still made sense by the math,
Mm-hmm.
which for him it did. Okay. Now he's
Yeah.
replaced that, by the way, with a new, well, he hasn't replaced it. He's replaced a portion of it, a few seats,
Mm-hmm.
with a new lead source where he's closing 1 out of 2.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, if he only can fill 15 slots and he can fill them with somebody who does 1 out of 2 instead of 1 out of 3, then he's going to do it with the 1 out of 2.
Right. So you're suggesting in your example that in his referrals, he was probably filling 1 out of 1. And then in his website
Correct.
leads, he was maybe getting 1 out of 2. But then in his Home Advisor, he was doing 1 out of 3. I do 100% agree with what Alex is saying. You have to have a different mindset as the marketing person for when you have not a small ticket item like windows or siding or roofing. It's a whole different mindset that you have to think about. Even if you're sticking by the formula, you cannot waste and afford to waste your small business owner's time in reaching out to. So you do have to get it down to maybe even better than, I don't know that
No.
Home Advisor was 1 out of 3, but if you say it is for him.
Well, it
So,
is for him.
Yeah.
Okay. I know as a fact it is for him.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it would be for anyone else. It doesn't mean it is for everyone else either.
Right.
But for him, it's 1 out of 3. But
Yeah.
see, I don't think, and again, don't want to go down this too far, but I'm not sure you have to have a different mindset. The mindset is the formula's got to work. Now, your decisions change by how big a ticket item it is and how many salespeople you have. The numbers change, but the mindset is I want to make maximum efficiency and I want to make maximum profit and I want the healthiest company. I'm not sure I want a different mindset. I don't, that's the mindset I have. Now, the numbers of what creates that change.
Yeah, I
Okay.
have a feeling that the mindset of, for example, a roofing company is a different profit mindset than it's a very smaller profit margin mindset that
Yeah,
they're
but-
willing to accept because they have a higher quantity of actual sales. So
And
it
see, to
is-
me, that's not a change in mindset. You're still trying to be profitable. What's changing is simply the numbers and thus your strategies and stuff change. But the mindset is still, I'm trying to have a profitable business that supports everybody and stuff. The decisions you make change because the numbers change.
Okay.
Okay, but still, I mean, you're still trying to maximize the results, are you not? Gail?
Yes, you're trying to maximize. Yes. So I'm just saying, marketing for a company that has selling one item like a roof or a window is a different, to me,
Absolutely.
it is a different mindset than
Well,
marketing.
we're in
for
complete
a
agreement with
ticket
that.
item.
Yeah, we're in complete agreement that it's different, but I'm going to maintain it's different because the numbers are different.
And I
That's what
think
makes it different. The numbers are different. Go
So-
ahead, Rob.
I see, for me, it's a little bit of a different dynamic than it is for Alex or for Gail, because, they're not going to find me through Home Advisor as to be their electrician. If they were to need an electrician on a project, they're going to find me through NARI or through something like this. This, for me, doing, I have to look at my small stuff, my service department, and I want to go out and get leads. So I have to compartmentalize my part of my business to that, getting a lead is for my service department and not for my construction department And that's kind of where I think I need to figure out my numbers. And I think for, people that are like the roofer, it's easy for him because each roof is X number and he gets X number of leads. But for both Gail and Alex, everything that they do is just such a different animal than what the roofer's doing or what my service department would do.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the numbers are still the numbers, is what I'm going to maintain. That what makes it different is different numbers.
Right, I get that.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. That I agree they're two totally different businesses. I agree with that totally. But you're still doing it by the numbers. That in the end of the day, profit is still profit, and profit comes when you take the total revenue and you subtract out the costs. What's left over is the profit.
Right.
That part I don't think changes. And so what is a profitable lead for one in comparison to what's a profitable lead for someone else changes because the numbers are different. Does that make sense?
Does to me.
Okay. And what I'm suggesting is that one of the challenges we all have in marketing our businesses is that I think we get caught on the fact that everything's different rather than what's the same. And what's the same is we have to learn how to bring in enough business that's profitable to have a business hit the numbers we want it to hit. And if we focus on that, a lot of other decisions become very, very easy. So Rob, we'll just kind of pick on you for a second, okay?
That's fine.
Yeah, because this is interesting, because when you started talking, I started thinking about this. So if Robbie, if you told me I need to bring in an extra 100,000 in sales in the next 3 months, and number is not important, it was just a number, okay?
Okay.
Well, there's a variety of ways we could accomplish that. And it would be interesting to kind of discuss that for a moment. So as an example, for those who don't know, Rob's an electrician, okay? His company does electrical work. And there's several different places that he can get that work. And so what we're going to do is try to figure out which one the numbers work the best for the quickest results, because we've given ourselves 3 months to do this. So as an example, I find it easier, and Rob, this is a two-way street, so correct, you know your business better than I do, okay? My impression is that if people are talking about a specific project, they're probably easier to move forward into doing a project than if they have no project in particular that they're thinking about. Is that fair enough?
Absolutely.
Right, okay. So I'm trying to look at what kind of jobs have the most profit in it that people would think about. So I'm just going to throw out some ideas, Rob, but you add to it based on your knowledge. But just to get it started, I'll throw out some ideas.
Okay.
I would think for you, and this is just my thought, I'm not claiming to be right, that if someone had a 5,000 square foot home in a nice community and they wanted outdoor lighting to make that house look good at night, that would be a good job for you. Would it be?
It's not one of our favorites, but it would be fine if they. Yeah. I mean, there are specialty companies that actually, that's their specialty.
Okay.
But yeah, it would be a good job.
Okay. I would think someone who needed a charging station for their new Tesla might be a good job. Would
That's
that
a great job. That's right up our alley. I mean, charging stations for Teslas or hanging a ceiling fan, service work that can be done in a short period of time is more profitable than an ongoing job that they were there for a year and a half.
Right. Okay. So just go with me here for a moment. So what we're going to do in Rob's case, we're going to start investigating what are his options, what are his marketable options, okay? And we're going to fit it into the formula that I gave earlier. So as an example, it's going to be less moving parts if we can find a bigger ticket item than a smaller ticket item. Okay, but we don't want such a big ticket item that the number of leads are very small. Okay, so what have I missed? What would be another good opportunity for you, Rob?
Put in a generator at somebody's house.
Perfect. Okay. So we can look at those two, and I'd start working on the numbers on those. Okay. So how much is the charging station going to cost?
$1,500.
How much, Rob? I missed it.
1,500. I'll just round it off to that.
Okay. And how much is the generator going to cost?
15,000.
Okay. And are the profit margins similar on the two, or is one a better profit margin?
I would think they're probably fairly similar.
Okay. So we're going to have to figure out, which is not a bad thing, by the way, but we're going to have to figure out how to bring in 10 charging stations to equal one generator.
That's true.
Okay. So if we can figure out a way to bring in the one generator lead, I'm going to figure that out because there's less moving parts. In one, you have to, let's just stick with the 1 out of 3 closing ratio. Not saying that's accurate, but just for this conversation, we'll stick with it. So one, I have to coordinate 30 meetings to get my 10 sales. The other one, I have to coordinate 3 meetings to get my 1 sale. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I'm going to instinctually, now if I can't make the numbers work, I'm going to then consider the charging stations. But for right now, my inclination is let's try to figure out the generator one first. What do you think?
Well, again, if we had a big storm that came through the area, the generator would be easy, but we haven't had any catastrophic storms lately, so generator sales are down. Whereas the sales of Tesla and other electric cars are booming. So I get what you're saying. I mean, it would be, for that 3-month period, it would be a lot easier for me to go sell $120,000 job to hit our number, as opposed to doing it by $120 service calls that we do as a minimum service call charge for an hour.
Right. And so as an example, we could put together a Facebook campaign. In fact, Rob, you ought to talk to Grayson about this because I think we could, where we talked about hurricane season.
Mm-hmm.
And we maybe put together a little ebook that talks about how to prepare for a hurricane.
I like it.
Okay. And in that ebook about how to prepare for a hurricane, one of the suggestions is a generator. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So once they've read that ebook or whatever we want to call it, white paper, whatever it is, X number of those people are going to say, gee, I wonder how much a generator would cost. And maybe in the ebook, we even give them an idea for they can kind of filter themselves out. We obviously don't know the exact cost because it's going to change by the size of their house and stuff like that. All right. But we can give them some ideas. So see, we actually could go out and let people self-select who is concerned about a hurricane. Who wants to be prepared for a hurricane? And we might be able to filter those people out. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And we sell all sizes of generators. I've done them for a $2,000 portable setup that you can plug your portable generator into, to a $50,000 whole house generator for a Potomac McMansion. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it would be good to drive some business that way.
Right. And so what we could do is actually target with we let people self-select if we're using Facebook, which is the overall discussion here. We let them self-select by if they're interested. Maybe we give them a free hurricane tracker map, okay, and stuff. Whatever. We figure out what would get them to raise their hand. But it would not be hard to work out the math on this and figure out if it's worth a try or not. You never know until you actually do it, okay? Now, so I'm going to suggest that we might be able to sell quite a few generators by putting together a Facebook campaign around preparing for hurricane season. All right?
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, I might come up with a totally different method for the charges. Okay, so as an example, we know what car dealerships are selling electric cars, right?
Right.
maybe we have somebody go and buy lunch for all the salespeople at all the dealerships that sell it, along with information about your charging installation and stuff. And maybe we offer them a spiff if they refer somebody,
Right.
okay? We might be able to set up fairly inexpensively a steady flow of those types of leads.
No,
What
I
do you
get it.
think?
No, I get it. It's promising.
Okay? Except I'm going to maintain that each of those examples are totally different, but they all go back to the same numbers.
No, I understand the numbers, and that's really, I'm definitely wanting to angle this toward my service department as opposed to the construction department. My construction department is really relationship driven. And, you know, that's how I've always made sales, by meeting people and, you know, getting, you know, tight with general contractors and architects. You know, I don't think those are the people. I mean, maybe buying them lunch would be helpful. I don't know.
Right. So does this make, so again, as I say, I think the process is the same, meaning that mathematical formula we gave,
Right.
but how it looks could be totally different.
Well, let me ask this question of Alex and Gail.
Sure.
You know, how would you go out and find an electrician?
I would have to defer to my production manager. However, I do forward him different sub contacts when I happen to meet a friend of a friend who has one. So it's usually, I find it by word of mouth, and then I forward to him for his follow-up.
Hey,
And-
Gail,
yeah.
yeah, Gail, I actually have a friend who's an electrician. Can I forward you his name? Would you be willing?
Is his name Rob?
Yeah, Rob.
Rob?
Hello.
Rob, never
No,
heard of
I
her.
was already going to ask Rob to please email me, and I'll forward it on to Chris.
I will.
Gail, did you hear what I said?
No.
I said Rob, never heard of her.
Yeah.
Rob. No, I was going to ask Rob. This is the last day, but yeah. So I was
Rob,
going to ask whether you
I-
do. Not all electricians work with, you know, remodeling companies. So, you know.
That's our bread and butter.
Okay.
Yeah, and the way when I need to find a new team member, trade specialist, I will usually speak to my superintendents or superintendents for other remodelers that are or builders that are friends of mine, and also maybe different builders or remodelers in the associations. You know, dinner meetings, happy hour, right?
Right.
You know, my electrician's swamped. He can't get to it. He just lost one of his best guys, and I may need to find, someone new to talk to. You guys have, anybody that, has got experience doing, quality renovation type electrical work, and half the time I'll get I'll get 2, 3, 4 different, usually recommendations to follow up with.
Alex?
Yeah.
My electrician has so much free time, he blows an hour of it every week in the middle of the day on Thursdays from 12 to 1. So,
Yeah, give me a call.
Well,
And
Alex.
Friday
Let's talk.
too, I think.
No, that's
That's
company
right, too, yeah.
building. He's working on his company.
that's right.
Parts.
I was teasing.
He's gainfully employed, and he's trying to, he's wearing his owner hat right now.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, give me a call. I'd like to talk to both of you guys about work at some point.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
great. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. Likewise.
What my suggestion in this conversation, though, is that we change, and I don't even know what our mindset is, how we approach it, but we change it to this is just a job, kind of like putting a kitchen in, okay? We just have to put the pieces together and assemble it and end up with a result, okay? In this case, the pieces we put together is how much can we afford to spend, how much do we need, and stuff, and we just put together something that produces that. And that will drive, is it worth the owner's time to take an hour to shoot 6 1-minute videos, as an example, and stuff? I mean, I hate to take my profession and make it just a set of numbers, but that is all it is. Okay, that's all marketing is. It's a bunch of numbers. Okay, what do we have to produce, and then what are the elements that produce that, and then it's like baking. Well, what are the right ingredients, and what is the right combination of ingredients that produce that results? And for some reason, we don't tend to approach marketing that way. At least my experience is people don't approach marketing that way. But I think that will actually help if we approach it that way. I think it will actually help. Well, I think I'll definitely think it will help the results we get from it, but it will also help us make the decisions of what to do along the way, because a lot of my clients, I'll be absolutely blunt, have a really, and Gail, you'll appreciate this, have a really negative reaction to HomeAdvisor. Okay. And yet to me, HomeAdvisor is like any other product. It's a product. It costs X amount of money. It brings X amount of value. If it makes sense to use it and buy it, I recommend it. If it doesn't make sense to use it and buy it, I recommend not doing it. They quite often people want to get into debate about if HomeAdvisor is good or bad. It all depends on the numbers. For one company, it's good. For another company, it's bad.
Well, true, but I have another opinion about it. I also
Sure.
like to give business to companies that I think are quality companies and do care about and put an effort into what they do and what they provide. And I don't believe they do. And I'm going to ask you, are you a fan of Yelp as well?
Well, first of all, it's interesting. I don't know if everybody heard her say, are you a fan of Yelp as well, as if I'm a fan of HomeAdvisor? Gail, I will tell you right up front, HomeAdvisor for me is the last place we go. When we still have seats empty and we have to fill them, that's when I consider HomeAdvisor. I never consider HomeAdvisor when I'm filling the beginning seats. Does that make sense?
Right. I just don't like to give business to companies that I don't believe in, that they provide quality work. That's
Yeah,
all.
if it's a moral or ethical question, that's totally different. I
And
mean,
plus, they didn't provide the numbers either, so they're
Right.
just unprofessional all around. So
yeah, which is fine. As I say, if it's a moral or ethical point, then I agree totally with that. Okay. But in most cases, in my experience, HomeAdvisor supplies exactly what they said they'll supply, and that is they'll supply you a very likely qualified lead. And the qualification is they did fill out a form and they did give a phone number. So it's likely qualified, and they'll graciously agree to give that to 2 of your biggest competitors for you guys can fight over it. Okay. That is what they say they'll do, and it generally is what they do. Okay. In my experience. And so that's why they're the last resort for me. I don't particularly want, if possible, to be buying something where automatically I know that I've got 2 people I'm competing with from the exact same moment with no differentiation and very low qualifications as a lead. Okay, that's why they're the lead source of last resort for me. That being said, if that's what I need to fill the last 3 seats, because again, as long as in the end it's profitable, then I have one more person who can give me referrals. I have one more person who my salesperson made a commission on. I have my crew's busy. If I need to use them, I will, but only if I need to, only if I can't figure out a better way.
Strictly numbers
It's strictly numbers.
and
That's correct.
cost per lead.
Right. Okay.
But
And-
there's also a cost to doing business with 70% of the homeowners I spoke with 4 or 5 years ago when I tried HomeAdvisor couldn't stand HomeAdvisor. They didn't even expect to be, they connected us randomly together by the phone. They didn't call me, I didn't call them, and yet we were on the phone. That's how HomeAdvisor did it. So 70% of them had very foul things to say about HomeAdvisor. And, I had the bad taste in my mouth, and I don't want to be associated with a company that is like that. So to me, it's not all about the numbers, because you have to make an effort to find other
Well,
sources
yeah.
instead of doing business with companies that
Yeah,
aren't.
and I said, if there's a moral or ethical question, that's totally separate.
Yeah.
I don't care if they're the best numbers in the industry. If they're morally or ethically unacceptable, then we shouldn't be doing business with them. So I'm in
Right.
complete agreement with that. The home advisors leads I'll say that I see now is where people gave their phone number. So if they're claiming they didn't give it, that's odd because they got it
They
somehow.
have to give it. They had to give it to get to fill out the form. They didn't
Right.
want to be called. Home advisor connected their call to my call without telling either of us, and this was repeatedly happening until I stopped it.
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah,
But
that's not the way they do it now.
but my it's just that's anyway.
Yeah,
the-
no,
the
and it's like
numbers
we're in
weren't there
agreement.
either. So for all reasons they were out.
Right. So we're in agreement on the moral and ethical though. Okay. So, all right. So let's go. Grayson, we have like 3 minutes.
Yep. You want me to fill it?
Well, what I was going to ask is, could you share a screen and show people the ad account? Because I heard questions about the ad account.
Sure. 1 second, window.
Okay.
The ad account. You talking about Beautiful Home ad account, or
It doesn't matter, any ad account, just so you can show them what,
Okay.
just if you could describe to them what they have to do to set up an ad account and what they're looking for. And by the way, you want a company that's frustrating. If Home Advisor
Oh my
isn't
God.
frustrating enough for you, try Facebook.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
We had one ad that they turned down. They said it broke their policies. We went back to them, and that was their robot saying we broke their policies. We went back to them and said, we didn't break our policy. Please manually review it. They manually reviewed it, said, oh, you're right. You didn't break our policies. They reactivated and then shut it down within a minute for breaking their policies, where we then had to ask them again to review it, saying we didn't break. And again, they said we were right. And again, they reactivated it. And then the moment it was reactivated, they shut it down again. I mean,
Well, it's the moment that we got a lead off of it.
that's right.
So what you have to do is you have to go to business.facebook.com and create an account. Now it'll tie with your personal Facebook account, not your business page. We'll get to that in a little while. But basically, once you create an account, we're going to go in and just kind of take a look at what it looks like. There's a lot of setup here. So, yeah,
What
as
are
you
you
can see.
showing this? What is this the purpose of? What are you showing?
Well, you asked in the beginning of it, we asked a little bit about how the mechanics work of doing Facebook and setting it all up.
Oh, setting up like an ad. Okay.
Right.
Right.
So there's two different ways you can create ads. One would be from your page where you boost a post, and another would be creating actual ad sets. And Chowdhury's in, I know he probably could shed a little more light on it, but as I understand, the difference is that, Chowdhury, what's the difference between boosting and doing the ad in Ad Manager?
Normally, when you're doing boosting, you're doing it from the page directly, which goes back to your business manager at the end of the day.
Yeah, but there's
So-
something more you can do with ads created with Business Manager, I was pretty sure.
Yeah, on Business Manager, you're able to do dynamic creatives, so you can actually let Facebook choose for you what works best.
You're right. Okay, good. So this is kind of what it looks like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the business settings because this is really where you have to go. You would start off by creating an ad account, and the ad account would be whatever it is you're going to use to post the advertisements, set up your payment methods, and all that kind of stuff. You then have to tie your page, your business page to it, and then set up your payment info here, okay? And once that's all done, we can go look at your data sources, which would be your pixel, okay? So then you have to set up a pixel. And what the pixel is going to do is the pixel will mark everyone that has an interaction with anything of yours on Facebook. So if they like a post, share a post, comment on a post, click a link on your ad, share an ad, whatever, it'll put them into a special audience. And then we use what we call exclusion audiences, where we take the people that came in and then we segment them out. Like, did they view a level 1 video? Yes. If they did, but they didn't see a level 2 or they didn't see a level 3, then show them the level 2s. If they saw level 1 and level 2, but they didn't see level 3, show them the level 3s. And this is in a remarketing strategy, right? So once you get all that all set up, okay, what we're going to do now is we'll go back and we'll look at the actual ad account itself, where we go in and we click Ads Manager. Now, Ads Manager is going to be where you create your campaigns, your ad sets, and your ads. And campaigns, ad sets, and ads are kind of like you have 16 different ads for 4 different subjects. So the ad sets are going to be the subjects. But this one campaign, so you have a roofing campaign, and then you have a repair and replacement, that's 2 ad sets. And then in the repair, you have 6 ads. In the replacement, you have six ads, different ones. So when you're going to go into your ad manager and create an ad, you actually have a whole lot of different guided creation options. We can just kind of pick what your goals are. I want brand awareness, I want traffic, I want engagement, I want conversions. I mean, so it really depends on the goal that you have. You can do split tasting. You can optimize your budget based on daily or lifetime numbers. Once we go in, we can choose different creative options. Then we can begin to work with audiences. And audiences, what you really want to do is you want to create a basic audience with your pixel and let that grow and grow, and then use what's called lookalike audiences. So you can say everybody that came to our Facebook page or interacted with one of our ads, we want everybody that has similar interests to those people, so that we can begin to get a pool of more people that are going to be more closely related to the people that are interested in our stuff. And this kind of layers and layers, and there are courses on how to do this, but this is the basics. You create a business manager account, you set up all your page, your ad account, your payments, your pixel, and then you go into the ad manager and you start creating your ads. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I probably just confused everybody because it's in depth. This is not something that it's like, boosting a post is one thing, but doing advertising the right way, in putting in creative and having the right calls to action and lead forms versus this or that, you need business manager to do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll tell you what we probably should do, Grayson, is before we send out the recording of this one,
Mm-hmm.
I probably should take some time and go and see if I can find a good training online
Yeah.
of how to use Ad Manager. And
I'm
we
sure
include the
digital
link in that.
marketer might have something.
I'm sorry?
Digital marketer might have something. that we can
I'm
share
sure they
out.
do. But we'll include a link to a training course. We'll include a link to one that's free, and we'll include a link to one that you have to pay for that is probably a more complete one. Does that sound like a good idea to
Yes,
everybody?
thank you very much.
Okay.
So because
And
when
we'll
you get
watch
into
a little
here,
bit,
you
make
can
sure that
really
we like
begin to get detailed stats here.
Right. Okay, this is what Chattery does all day, every day, which is why he's suicidal. We have him on suicide watch at all times.
He probably loves it. Most data people, we like the data. We like to interact and look at it. So.
Chattery, do you love it?
Some days when the results are good, I'm loving it, but other days, you know it.
Well,
See,
right
okay,
now,
here's a perfect example. Check this out. So I'm in Facebook Ad Manager. We had an ad rejected because it doesn't comply with their policy. You can edit the ad or go to the account quality and request a new review. So we go to account quality. It doesn't tell you what your violation was.
Because
It
I
just
already
gives you-
appealed. Those are the 3 I already appealed.
Okay, in review. Yeah, okay, advertising policies. So
They give examples of what it could be, which has no relevance to what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very confusing.
It is very frustrating to interact with Facebook, even on anything. You can't just reach them, and it's like a auto reply that's not even the right answer or pertaining to the exact. If you ever try and reach out to them for legal things and stuff, same problem. So they give wrong answers, and then finally, after 5 emails, they'll say, "Oh no, yeah, you're right. We've corrected
Yep.
it." Whatever.
Yeah, and
So-
it depends on, you might even go through the chat. They have a chat available in some instances, and depends on which operator you get, what your,
Right.
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Anyway. All right. Well, I hope this was helpful to people overall. And I didn't mean to throw too big a wrench in by talking about the philosophy of figuring out how to get the amount of business you need by filling it with different, quality leads based on what the best available was. So I hope that was helpful. And maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Art. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Classes and Grayson and Chowdhury.
You're welcome. We'll send a wrap up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.